We're back, and so is our friend and colleague. His name is Rod Martin. He is the chairman of the board of our Institute for the American Future, so a very big deal in our world. He's also one of the great free-range minds of our time and the creative genius behind the Rod Martin Report, which you can find at rodmartin.org, and I encourage you to subscribe to it. It's a wonderful resource, as are all of his other products, his videos, his blog posts, his commentaries, and, of course, his appearances here at Securing America, for which we are very grateful. Rod is a member of our Committee on the Present Danger China, among other things, and an entrepreneur who cut his teeth initially with the great Governor Mike Huckabee in Arkansas as his policy director, as well as a founding member of the PayPal Mafia back in the day. Rod, it's good to have you back, my friend. Welcome. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you.
So there's been something that I know you have been commenting on elsewhere that I wanted very much to have you share some thoughts with our audience about, namely the removal by force of arms, very discreet force of arms, to be sure, but force of arms nonetheless, of the U.S. military, of one Nicolas Maduro and his spouse from a hideaway in which they were, I thought, safely ensconced in Caracas on Saturday of this past weekend. Tell us what you make of the event itself and the strategic implications of it.
Well, we sometimes talk about win-win. Donald Trump prefers win-win-win-win-win-win-win. And that, and that's what he did here. It's just brilliant, not least in that no one's going to think that their safe room is safe ever again, because it isn't. And oh, by the way, the much vaunted S-300 systems are a joke, as we saw in Iran. And, so this is just good all around. On the S-300 issue, who's ever going to buy Russian air defenses again? I mean, you just have to be stupid. And likewise, you know, we really have a problem for Russia. They're really in trouble here because we're not stopping going after the Shadow Fleet tankers that are leaving Venezuela. Well, in the process, you're getting the same Shadow Fleet tankers that are leaving Russia. And so, there's a real threat to Putin that pushes him in the direction of the peace table at a crucial moment. How strenuous Trump will get about that remains to be seen. I imagine that depends to some degree on Putin's behavior. But the biggest loser is actually probably Cuba. The Cuban regime can't survive without the Venezuelan subsidy. And it's not just money. China might make up the money, but they can't make up the oil. So, just on front after front after front, all of our enemies are getting a massive slap in the face, one after another. And in Venezuela itself, we'll see what happens. Maybe this works, maybe it doesn't. But my guess is, think about what Maduro and his wife are charged with. They're charged with conspiracy. Well, who are the conspirators? In addition to them, all the people currently running Venezuela. So, they just got a demonstration that, if Maduro wasn't safe, none of them are. My guess is they're going to play ball and try to work out some kind of deal, and we can get to a point where there's actually a democratic transition. Should that happen, Venezuela is potentially the richest country in Latin America, and it could be a staunch ally instead of a base for China, Russia, and Iran, which is just the world turned upside down. So, I mean, we're not even covering all of the ways Trump delivered us a victory here in under 2 hours, and that's a heck of a lot.
It is a heck of a lot in 2 hours, that's for sure. So just tease that out a little bit, if you would. You're talking about a strategic course correction of epic proportions. But we shouldn't kid ourselves. The Chinese are in every country in Latin America.
Sure.
To say nothing of all over Venezuela, of course. The Russians are in a number of them. The Iranians are in a number of them. Hezbollah is in a number of them. If this is a win, are we going to see, do you think, as a result of what has happened here in Venezuela, countries elsewhere in the region, and some of them have already started flipping. I mean, Argentina and Chile and Ecuador and Bolivia. But what about Brazil? What about Peru? What about Colombia? Are we going to see those guys abandoning the Chinese anytime soon, do you think, Rod?
Well, you just said the magic words. You know, this greatly raises the price of being in bed with China at a moment where the Trump administration is very interested in American investment in Latin America, which is not always the case. And as long as I'm talking about American investment in Latin America, we're about to give them quite a template because Trump was very clear. Yeah, war for oil. We're not apologizing for that. Sorry, you guys stole our stuff. We're getting it back. Well, okay, what was the deal that existed before nationalization? It wasn't some rape and pillage deal by evil American corporate titans. Quite the contrary. It was a 50-50 split where all Venezuela offered was access to their oil fields they could not exploit in exchange for 100% of the investment, 100% of the technology, 100% of the engineering expertise to actually develop that and make Venezuela rich. That's an incredible deal, and it's more so when you consider that if you owned a piece of land out in the oil patch near Midland, the oil company would give you 20%, not 50. So these are good deals, and it's gonna be good deals across Latin America.
It certainly should be, and it will make a strategic impact elsewhere in the region vis-a-vis China. I think you're right, Rod. Hold the thought. We'll be right back with much more with Rod Martin on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and once more, welcome to our chairman. His name is Rod Martin. Follow his tremendously important work at rodmartin.org. He features, I'm always pleased to say, our conversations with him, but so much more, including his really important analyses, including several pieces of late about Venezuela. And Rod, I wanted to address with you a couple of other aspects of what is passing for the conventional wisdom now about all of this. Specifically, that Donald Trump, by reaching out and grabbing Maduro, has violated international law in a way that is now threatening the entire world order, subject to probable condemnation by many members of the UN Security Council, though with our veto it will come to naught, of course. But what you've got some background in the law. What do you say to people who make that particular claim to denounce what the president's done and I guess try somehow to undo it if they can? I don't know. I guess by freeing Maduro. God.
Good luck. You know, I'm really waiting for that carrier strike group from Cuba to show up off the coast of New York. We're really worried about that. Look, international law is just not an issue here. First of all, it's mostly bunk, and the argument that this violated international law is mostly bunk. Second, U.S. law is actually real. And the US law here allows us to capture and take into custody a criminal suspect who has been indicted in an American court to come back here and stand trial for his crimes against not just America, but Americans. And lest we be unclear, it's not just statute, it's also court precedent, because we did the exact same thing with Noriega in 1989, 1990. So there's no question about that. Here's the question. The question is power. Does China have the ability to invade Taiwan? Does Russia have the ability to invade its neighbors? Well, clearly Russia does, but it's not going well. We've got reports this morning out of Azerbaijan that the Russians are actually, you'll remember the term from before the War of 1812, impressing servicemen into the Russian army, just nabbing them off the streets and putting them on the front, because they don't have the people they need to keep doing what they're doing. That war is going horribly for them, and it's going to go a lot worse if the shadow fleet is under meaningful threat, as it now is. But as to China, the Taiwan arms deal is just brilliant. I mean, first of all, it's the biggest arms package we've ever given Taiwan in dollar value. Second, it's all defensive weapons that are aimed directly at the landing craft that would be necessary for China to pull off an invasion. So in all of these things, Donald Trump is increasing the price of bad behavior. That is his strategy literally everywhere. And the Chinese strategy is to break out of that box. We talked about this in terms of the space and the lunar South Pole and the Lagrange points a couple weeks ago, but much closer to home, they'd love to build some kind of semi-first island chain based on Cuba and Venezuela and so forth, and that just collapsed. So Chinese grand strategy is in tatters here, and Donald Trump's strategy is putting them in a box.
There will be people who say that we're not quite in tatters in terms of
not yet,
the
but we're
box that we've built in Venezuela, at least. But what you're describing, Rod, and I think is certainly true, is there is a larger purpose at work here. And this is one of the things we're going to be talking about in our Committee on the Present Danger China webinar tomorrow as we speak. That would be Wednesday at 11 a.m. And I hope you'll participate in that if you can, because I think this is absolutely critical to where are we vis-a-vis the effort to defeat the Chinese Communist Party, which of course is the sole purpose of our Committee on the Present Danger China. But to take this larger point, Rod, we're told that the president has both, defied international norms, and I agree with you, they are mostly bunk. A friend of mine, Doug Feith, used to say, I know international norm, and international norm is nothing to write home about. But this question about whether the Congress of the United States had a right to be informed about all of this, and that right was somehow negated or in a precedent-setting way awfully impinged upon, is another chronic refrain we're hearing from the president's critics. Your thoughts, sir?
I just marvel. Have they not read the War Powers Act? I mean, even assuming that this action fell under the War Powers Act, and I would contend that it absolutely does not, and the Noriega precedent makes clear that it does not, nevertheless, the War Powers Act gives the president carte blanche to engage in military action for 48 hours before even notifying Congress and 90 days before Congress gets a say. So, this was designed, just to be clear, this was designed by Democrats in Congress in 1974 who were desperate to tie the president's hands so there could never be another Vietnam War. and to do so in as strenuous and complete a way as was possible, consistent with what they thought they could get past a Democrat Supreme Court. But the truth is, even the War Powers Act is too restrictive. The precedents that we see from Presidents Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe, founding fathers all, people who understood what they meant by their words in the Constitution much more clearly than these latter-day pundits do, make perfectly clear the War Powers Act is unconstitutional because it's too restrictive. But
Rod, this is a subject to which we have to return with you. We need a legal analysis of all of that, and I'm sure we're going to hear people calling for it as well. Bless you, my friend. Thank you for joining us. Come back to us often in the new year. I hope the rest of you do the same. Till then, go forth and multiply.